the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off on the Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I'm here so far with my buddy Evan Liu to talk Colorado Avalanche courtesy of milehighhockey.com. And you know what? It's kind of a dark time for Avalanche fans, but you know what? It says something because it's just, something small for us. We're used to it being really good around here in Colorado, obviously. So let's just get right into today's topics. We're going to talk a little bit about Pavel Francois, his injury news and announcement from the Colorado Avalanche. He will be out for the remainder of the season. We're going to touch on that a little bit. We're also going to touch on the loss to the St. Louis Blues last week and Bednar's pretty scathing comments after the game. And then we're, of course, going to preview tonight's game against the Kraken, puck drop at 8 p.m. in Seattle. So we're going to play the Kraken again, I guess. So let's just get right into it. We should have Ezra joining us whenever he has a chance to. All of us have jobs outside of what we do here. So sometimes duty calls, as they say. But Evan, great having you. Let's talk Avalanche hockey now that my spiel is done. Let's get right into that Blues debacle, as we'll call it. And I kind of, I guess, gave a little prelude to what the topic will be, which is Bednar's comments following the game were pretty critical. He used words like quit and soft. Let me know, do you agree with his criticism? And is that as critical as you've ever seen Jared Bednar be about this Avalanche team?
Oh, absolutely. I sadly had to watch that entirety on TV. And I think I tweeted out, I was like, do I really have to keep watching after it was like 6-1 or something like that?
Yeah.
Like the story had been written and it only got worse from there. So yeah, then of course, writing the recap, having the TV on just in the background, and Bednar just went in on those guys. And it's not like it wasn't like a full on yelling at the podium, but that's as close as you'll see him to getting to that point, So that was insane, first off. And second, I do kind of agree with him a little bit. The tenacity and the will to kind of get the team back into it kind of quit after those first, 10 minutes after the Blues scored in the first period. It was they had done well up to that point, and if they'd went down 1-0 into the room, I think we would have all thought, hey, we still have a wonderful chance in this game.
Yeah.
Then 20 seconds later, it's 3-0, and then it's all hell after that. So it was not a fun time in Avs land, not just on Saturday, but for the last 72 hours, which I know we'll get into later.
Yeah, well, I mean, a part of that 72 hours is the Kraken game as well. And I feel like between the Kraken game and the Blues game, it just felt like the Avalanche had lost a little bit of their it factor. Ezra Parter, thank you very much for joining us. I want to send this one your way. And just so you know, you missed a little bit of the prelude, but we were talking about Jared Bednar's pretty scathing comments of the Avalanche after the Blues game. And I asked Evan, is that the most critical you've seen Bednar be, and do you agree? And I'll extend that question to you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he never shows emotion really, and he never has anything. He'll say things directly that are like, yeah, we could have used more from him, or like we could have seen better defensive effort from him, or something like that. But to throw the whole team under the bus in that way, I mean, well deserved. They earned it. To use the word quit, I think 7 times in that press conference. I mean, to tell a hockey player it looked like he quit on his team out there, that's a smack in the face, and he didn't tell one player, he told the whole team. And that's that's big. And I think they earned it. I think they really did earn it. I heard the tail end of what Evan was saying because I had to join a little bit late. Sorry about that. But I thought, yeah, the first 10 minutes of the first period were fantastic. They got scored on, and I thought they handled that pretty well.
Mhm.
They kept their game going. They were creating chances. The underlying stats for the whole game honestly look good. I know it's score effects later on, but the first period particularly, they were dominant and gave up goals on just like one insane fluke, one bad mistake, and then the last minute thing where they kind of took their foot off the gas a little too early. And it's those like taking the foot off the gas a little too early is where you're like, okay, they made a mistake, but then to never put their foot back down the rest of the game is like unexcusable.
Exactly. Yeah, I would totally agree with that because like you said, mistakes happen, things happen. You lose coverage, bounces here and there, but it's that effort, and I agree with the two of you. Specifically, Bednar's mentioning of the effort, I think, speaks volumes because, as you mentioned, he's a quieter coach, especially in terms of like picking out guys. He literally said their goaltender played better than our goaltender. Their forwards played better than our forwards, and their defenders played better than our defenders. And I think I saw some comments from Nathan McKinnon actually too since that press conference, and he was asked if he agrees with Bednar. And I think you guys will find this interesting. He said no. Basically, I'll paraphrase, but basically he said no, that stuff like this happens, and it kind of felt like it's easy for you to say that when you're not down 6-1 in the second period. And as much as I love Nathan McKinnon, that's not really the reaction I want from him in particular inside of this team, because as it sits right now, we have and I won't give too much credit to this, but we have radio personalities in Denver calling for someone to wear the C instead of Landeskog being out. And it is about leadership and stuff. And this just does not look good to me in terms of that leadership maybe being missing. I don't agree with, putting a letter on the jersey all of a sudden makes things different. But Evan, what are your thoughts on that and the leadership of this team? What did you think of McKinnon's comments there?
Yeah, I also don't think that C should be going anywhere. I'm just not. I'm not going to go there. I'm not even going to go there. But McKinnon's comments were funny. I'm not going to lie. Like, just I don't know what he was watching, I guess, or what he was experiencing compared to the others. Sure, I understand the fact that, like, yes, this happens. It happens sometimes where you get blown out in a game. Not twice in 1 week. That does not happen twice in 1 week. And I think that kind of leads into bigger issues that we've seen with the Avs losses this season. They've all been very different losses. There has been, the 2 shutouts on the road, of course, but they just didn't really show up. Or they weren't different, I should say. They're all bad, I should say.
Yes, exactly.
They got shut out on the road 3 times. 2 of the games they didn't even show up for. And the Vegas one, it sounds like they at least showed up a little bit, but just everything went wrong. The recent Seattle game, they fought well. They did what they were supposed to do. And then Oliver Bjorkstrand just wanted to play heartbreaker. And then, of course,
one mistake.
Yeah. And then, of course, Saturday night's game was just unfathomably bad. So I feel like that does kind of lead more into the leadership of the team, like you say. And nobody's going to be Gabriel Landeskog, right? I mean, I remember sitting there after it was down 3-0 in the first period. I was like, what I would do for this man to magically be okay in his knee and come play the last 2 periods in this game and at least give them a chance, right? Yeah. Whether it's something he said in the locker room or something he'd do on the ice, all of that. And so you look at others who could be leaders, I guess, right? Cogliano, he was out, couldn't really do anything. McKinnon, who I guess is the de facto captain, you could say, I guess. Not really looking like that. Neither is Rantanen, at least not on the bench anyway. On the ice, he's still doing just fine. Yeah. And then people have been saying Kale, he's going to make a great captain once Gabriel Landeskog hangs it up. He's not really fitting in that role now. And it's not going to be like that, at least for this season. So I don't know. It's just a whole mess, honestly. Yeah. That's the best way that we can put it.
Well, I'm going to send this one over to Ezra because I agree with you. And you mentioned that Cogliano was hurt too. Ezra, how much of it was felt to you kind of like a hangover of that really disappointing loss to the Kraken? Then you come home to play the Blues, and as you said, the first 10 minutes of the third period are really good hockey from the Avs, but it's just not going your way, which I think is kind of the theme of every matchup with the Kraken, at least in recent history, is like, yeah, the Avs are playing competitive hockey. They're staying in there, but towards the end of things, it just doesn't come to fruition. What are your thoughts on McKinnon's comments first? And second of all, do you think it has something to do with that, the way they lost to the Kraken the game before?
Yeah. Well, I think McKinnon's comments come from some, like, all these losses have been every chance for the other team goes in the net, and nothing goes in for the Avs.
Yeah.
And the underlying play is like actually pretty good for the most part. They played a it's hard to say it with a 7-0 loss, but they played a good game in Vegas and just nothing worked. And I thought the same thing about the other shutouts, honestly. Like the intensity wasn't there in the same way, but the actual like possession play was there. What I've noticed this year about this team so far is like the possession play is so good, and that they are dominating possession, holding onto the puck in the offensive zone, controlling play, and then one mistake happens and they're too tired from all that domination to get back and cover. So that, like, it's, and you see it on the power play all the time. Those two shorthanded goals were both situations where the top unit was out for 2 minutes, and at the end of the 2 minutes they fumble a puck, and it's like, oh right, we don't have any legs left.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really frustrating, and I get where McKinnon's coming from. Is he's like, look, we're doing everything right, it's just not working. That happens. Which I understand what he's saying, but in that Blues game specifically, in the third period, you saw the game was out of hand. They knew it was out of hand, and they weren't really trying to bring it back in hand. Yeah. And that's what Bednar was talking about. It's like, have some pride, try to put some goals on the board, make it look a little closer. We're probably not going to make up a 5-goal deficit. We all know that, but let's try,
Mm-hmm.
And instead, they gave up another shorthanded goal and another breakaway. Ivan Prosvetov looked like a brilliant goaltender back there in his 13 minutes or whatever.
Yeah,
which is great, because after that Seattle loss, that was all on him, I thought. So rebounded from that a little bit. I don't know. I guess my overall point is, like, the team's playing pretty well. They're snake bit a bit, and in that game they let their frustration around that snake bittenness show. And with, as far as leadership goes, that's something that you wouldn't see with Landeskog and EJ and Cogliano on the bench, but Landeskog's gone, EJ's gone, Cogliano's hurt. I think it's on Rantanen to step up, frankly, because McKinnon's going to be McKinnon all the time. And Rantanen, we saw him last year really play that role of leader, to his detriment. Sometimes he was in the box a little too much, getting too fiery. But I would welcome that version of Mikko back at this point this season.
That's a really good point. And I also like what you said about possession, because Bednar mentioned too that, like, and it was kind of a funny moment that he had where he said, we're down 5-1 and we got guys trying to go tic-tac-toe and look for the perfect play to put the puck into the net. And I think that that's true. I think you're right about McKinnon and his perspective, because totally being on the end of a 2-minute power play, not getting anything to go in, and then here you got a killer screeching up the ice for a shorthanded goal. That is so frustrating, especially when you know for a fact that you're controlling possession. And I think it is a lot about puck luck and finishing. But also, you mentioned Rantanen and his leadership role and how it felt like he stepped into that. I wonder if, and then you also mentioned Johnson and Cogliano, but Johnson in particular, like, I wonder if there's not enough leadership by committee now, alongside what Rantanen brings to the table, because I think that in moments where probably Rantanen wasn't necessarily as comfortable speaking up, you probably had Erik Johnson saying, guys, this doesn't fly. And I think now it's just that by committee leadership that we're lacking, and it helps, or I should say it doesn't help, and it kind of emphasizes my point when you don't have Landeskog, because that's when it really hurts. When you don't have your true captain, and then you also don't have leadership by committee, you're in trouble when it comes to these games that get out of hand. And I think that truly is the marker of the Avalanche so far. They're either playing really well, the puck's going in for them and they're winning, or the puck's not going, the bounces aren't going their way, and their leadership isn't coming through to keep them in these games when they should. So hopefully we see the Avalanche start to turn that around. But it's something to me that like I feel like the Avs are still working on building some chemistry, and as it pertains to Rantanen leading, I think that holds true still when you think about the fact that some of these guys haven't played with Rantanen, so him leading is kind of atypical, even in the inside of the core, let alone to some of these new guys. So I think that it'll take time for this Avalanche group to find that leadership by committee. I think you'll even see guys like Ross Colton and Miles Wood find themselves as a part of that leadership committee going forward. So we'll have to see how that goes tonight. But let's move on a little bit to some other news that we've seen this week, and some more sad news, unfortunately, which is that Pablo Francois, he will not be coming back this season for the Avalanche. Evan, does that feel like the end of Frankie's NHL career for you? And do we owe him a tip of the hat?
I don't know if it's NHL career that he's done, but I think at least Avalanche wise, I think that is it for him.
Yeah.
Going into the final year of his contract, 33 years old, and his health has just always kind of been a question for the last 3 years. Like it's so sad and unfortunate to say it, because we have seen how great he can be. I was in the building for Game 2 of that Western Conference Final against the Oilers, where he pitched that shutout.
Same.
One of the greatest environments I think I've ever been in at a hockey game. Like, that was spectacular. That was when I knew the Avs were going to win the cup. Like, that was it right there. And that was thanks to Frankie. And he wouldn't have been in that position if he wasn't covering for the injured Darcy Kemper at that time.
Half-blind Darcy Kemper. Yeah.
Exactly. So we've seen what he can do. We've seen how capable he is. And I know that when Georgiev had first come in last year, there was kind of a debate of who would actually end up starting, because Georgiev hadn't had a starting role before, but Francois had also been very, very good with the Avs when he was starting. So I just think that with who's in the pipeline with the Avs now, you have Prosvetov, who's been decent. You have Anunin, who's still developing and is hopefully going to keep on getting better, right? And maybe break in as the backup a few years down the line. You still have Arvid Holm, who's capable if need be, but I think he's kind of fourth out of those four. And I think Jared Bednar and Chris McFarland, they're going to be willing to roll with those guys as long as Georgiev is still doing his thing. Probably now at least 50 games, I think, this season, if not more. In the crease, and then giving him an occasional night off for Prosvetov or Anunin or whoever. So it just really, really sucks. That's for sure for Frankie. Like, I think because we hadn't heard much updates about him since training camp, I think kind of in the back of our heads, we were thinking that this was maybe going to happen, but at least they told the team, and everybody knows now. It's not like the Landeskog debate where it drags on and on and on. So now I think Francois's cap hit was, I forget, I don't remember how much it is now, but they have at least a little bit too. That's what I thought. So they have a little bit more cash now to play with at the trade deadline if need be down the line. But there's a lot of other things that need to be dealt with first before we get to that point.
Well, the thing with Francois is, like you mentioned it, he's kind of going to live on forever in Avalanche fandom because of his role in their Stanley Cup run, and particularly that Frankie chant in Game 2 of the Western Conference Final. What concerns me about his prospect of even being an NHL goalie going forward is the frequency of injuries and type of injury, which is that he's been injured in his hips, and it's happened for basically the last 3 to 4 years consecutively where he's had to deal with that. And then you mentioned him being 33. So that's kind of why I phrased the question that way. But Ezra, what do you think? Do you think Frankie's done in the NHL, or do you think he's got another couple years left in him? And do the Avs have a goalie issue on their hands, or are they set?
Well, first off, I want to thank Frankie for his service. What a great couple of years.
Yes.
It is. I agree with Evan. It is likely to be the end of his tenure in Colorado. And I'll go a little further. I think he went home, He went home. I could see him staying there. He didn't try to rehab here. He went home. So I think that says something too. But a goalie like him, who had success later in his career, a lot of players who make the league later in their career have short tenures.
Yeah.
And that's not an indictment of them. That's a fantastic achievement. It just is true. And his, unfortunately, with injury, that compounds that possibility. So, yeah, I think it's possible we don't see him back in the league, but I hope he makes it. I hope he recovers and he can play a couple more years. He obviously was fantastic when he was able to play. So, as far as the Avs goalie issue, I mean, Prosvetov was decent against St. Louis and still gave up 2 goals. I know that game is
Yeah.
not fair to judge him on. I really didn't like his Seattle game. He won the first St. Louis game, but I didn't like his game. So I don't know. I think he's not a trustworthy backup right now. I do think he has potential. I liked him when they picked him up. He was in my preview this season of goalies who they might pick up to cover Frankie's injury. He was one of the guys I targeted, and they actually did it. And so far,
Yeah.
I'm either right or wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. But
Jury's not out.
but I really like Annunen too. So there's something there as a backup, but they also might not be ready to trust Annunen, and Prosvetov might be playing his way out of that job. So they could end up picking somebody up. I wouldn't say it's a problem right now, but if Georgiev is shaky and there's not somebody who can take a bunch of starts in a row, that's not good.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about Georgiev's performances, and I'll keep it with you real quick, Ezra.
Sure.
Has he fallen off a little bit, or is it just what's kind of going on in front of him that's really to blame?
If you go goal by goal in Vegas or St. Louis, you're not going to have a problem with most of them for him. He is square to pucks. He's tracking well. They are finding ways through him in a way that is just not sustainable. The on-ice shooting percentage for opposing teams is crazy right now. It's going to even out. Things are going to start hitting his pads instead of trickling through them. It's just going to happen. But at the same time, you don't give up 7 goals, 8 goals. You don't do that on a regular basis if you're playing well. So it's a combo of, you want him to be a little more dialed in and get the pad level just a little bit more correct to stop things that aren't that are kind of on the fringes that look like they're just trickling through, but maybe that's because he's actually not standing or holding his post solidly enough. Or I'm thinking of a bunch of different goals at once. This is
it's hard.
confusing. But
it's not a good thing when you can do that, though, right?
Right, exactly. The bottom line is, though, I think if the team in front of him plays better, he is playing well enough to keep things even. He's not playing out of his mind like he was through the first 6 games.
Yeah, and in the first 6 games, I felt like some nights he was stealing it for the Avs.
Definitely.
And that's what I want Georgiev to get back to. Is even if say the Avs have a stinker game again, but I at least want it to look like, oh well, Georgiev might keep him in this long enough for them to steal a game, because I think that's really, really crucial to the Avalanche success, especially in the regular season. Because I think we saw last year how injuries can affect a team and the results, and you're going to want to be in it at least every single night. And I think the Avs have been out of games far sooner and far more frequently so far this season than any fan has gotten accustomed to in the last 2 or 3 years, which is why I think these 5 losses feel so much worse than any 5 losses have in a long time. Evan, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Georgiev has room for improvement? And then also, I want to get your thoughts on the Kiviranta signing. What do you think of that?
In terms of Georgiev, I mean, yes, there's definitely improvement, but that comes with the improvement of the team. And kind of on the similar line that Ezra had said, he was definitely stealing some games in those first 6 games, because he didn't really have the team in front of him to help out. Now he doesn't have the team to help out in front of him, and he's letting in goals. So that's far from ideal. He can step it up, though. I know he will be able to. It's not like we're going to be talking about him getting dealt at the trade deadline or something. Don't go there, people.
They will.
I know. But talking about other signing news, though, Yoel Kiviranta has signed. He was obviously on a PTO during training camp, but then didn't make the team down in the Eagles. Now is with the Avs, and I think that it comes with more injury issues, of course. Andrew Cogliano is not playing tonight. He's still here in Denver on a non-contact. Of course, the Lehkonen injury, which I'm sure we'll go over later. and all of that. So I feel like it just gives the Avs another option at least. I'm sorry, but they will still probably have Curtis McDermott down there and
Yeah.
Kiviranta.
Yeah.
So that will be kind of an interesting combination, and see how that goes with Richard Olofsson there in the middle on that fourth line. But of course, I mean, we all know that Kiviranta was the Avs killer in 2020 and hasn't really done much more outside of that. So,
Ouch.
I know. I'm sorry.
Is it hurt worse that he's done nothing since? Yes, absolutely. It hurts worse that he's done nothing since.
Yeah. So maybe he'll do something. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it's really more so just like an extra backup option. I think winger wise, at least, because down in the AHL you have Ben Myers, who's center, and then you really just have like a Lawson and I guess Jason Poland, but not great, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I saw a video of a football fan telling his child bedtime stories about the Lions, and it was about Calvin Johnson's catch in the end zone that was deemed not a touchdown. And I thought about what that story would be for me, and I have two of them. It's the Landeskog offsides play and that Kiviranta goal play right there. Those are bedtime stories for the kids. But we'll sprinkle in some of the Frankie chants. So I'd like to take a moment to thank Frankie as well, Ezra and Evan. I'll do so on your behalf from our program here at Mile High Hockey. Pablo Francois, or Francois, I like to ruin it. Thank you for your time in Colorado. We appreciate you. But Evan, getting back to the Kiviranta thing, I agree with you. I think it speaks to the fact that the Avalanche are once again dealing with some injuries. And you kind of led to what I want to talk about next, which was the Lehkonen injury and the Cogliano injury. Ezra, first, let's start with the Lehkonen injury. It just looked like they kind of came together in an awkward way, and the worst case scenario unfolded for Lehkonen. Is that how you saw it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no intent there. There's not even like any shove. There's nothing. There's nothing. It's really horrible, and it's a high speed game with the chance for these kinds of freak accidents to happen. It's not the worst thing in the hockey world this year, obviously, with
Right.
Adam Johnson, but it is you never want to see anybody go down like that. The rumor out there for him is a fractured neck bone. We don't know any details on that. I don't know if it's true. It's just the rumor circulating. So he could be out for a long time. We saw Cogliano deal with something similar after last year's playoffs, and it took him until the beginning of the season to get going. So, and now he's out too. So, Lehkonen's a huge piece of the Avalanche forward core, and for him to be out, that's it's a big blow.
Yeah, and you say there's no intent with the Lehkonen hit. Did you see intent with the Cogliano hit?
The Vince Dunn hit on Cogliano.
Yes, which the whiplash play, which led to the Bowen Byram instigating, which was such a frustrating.
Yeah, that was an insane series of events. I thought it was obviously a check in the back. There was another one on Bo Byram in the St. Louis game. I'm like, why are we just? I was sitting with my girlfriend, and the announcers were like, I think that's usually a penalty. And I was like, the thing that you don't know about the rules is it's okay to do that to Colorado players.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It was like, you are being biased. And I'm like, I know. But you know what? It's so frustrating because it was just two very obvious similar plays. I'm so glad Bo's okay, assuming he's not the reason that Malinsky got called up. But with Cogliano, yeah, obviously that's a check in the back, and obviously Byram steps up to deal with it, and I don't really love him.
No,
to do it,
I hate it.
You're asking for trouble there, Bo. But
you wear a tinted visor, Bo. If you wear a tinted visor, you probably shouldn't be fighting.
I love his instinct to step up in his teammates'
For sure.
Moment of need. That is good. Keep the gloves on. Just shove the guy into the boards. I was going to say let Curtis McDermott come fight, but we all know that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
I don't know. Manson will do it. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't. Nobody even has to do it. He should just have gotten a penalty. That's what's
exactly. Well, and that was my point when I watched it. I said, is that instigating by the letter of the rules? Absolutely. Yeah. But I don't know if there's a similar reaction if it feels like there's going to be a call on that play. You know what I'm saying? Totally. And obviously it was bang, bang, whatever. But the whole point of the refs is that they're there to protect players. And to me, when you don't call an obvious check in the back a penalty, you're not doing that, and that's literally your only job. It's like you had one job. Well, refs, you have one job, and it's to protect the players on the ice. And I agree with you. I saw a video earlier today too that was like basically a cut up of a hockey player just doing unthinkable things to a dummy on the ice, and it said, "Be prepared for Avs versus Kraken again." And it really feels that way. Like just the Kraken. It's like, dudes, can you please leave the Avalanche necks alone for like 10 days? And I hope tonight that honestly the Avs just dominate and make a statement on the scoreboard and say, we're done with you guys. Because I think Connor McGahey said that the Avalanche and the Kraken have played 14 times in the last 12 months with the playoff series and the spattering of quickly facing them this regular season. So I'm so done with playing the Kraken. I'm so done with these 8:00 start times. Let's get over to the East Coast so we can start playing at normal times. But Evan, like, what are your thoughts on the matter? Do you think that the Avs respond to the hit on Cogs again, I guess?
If they have somebody to respond to it with, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking matchup wise, I guess you could throw in Manson and Dunn, but
yeah,
McDermott will probably want to get his hands on him. But then again, just like Ezra said, we don't know how well that'll go. But I think I don't know. I'm not sure. As long as it's not Byram that's doing it, great.
You're cool.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine as long as it's not Byram, please. But I'm also very much done playing with Seattle, and I think it's nice that we're kind of getting that out of the way early.
Yeah.
We know how pesky and annoying that they can be to play against, just clogging up the neutral zone and never not working, whether it's on or off the puck. So it will be nice to get them in our rearview mirror.
Agreed.
So yeah, we'll see how it all kind of plays out. I am fully expecting Makar to get booed again, even though the Avs fans didn't boo Alexiak for his hit on Lehkonen. So both of them weren't dirty. I will die on that hill. So it's that's it right there. That's it.
Ugh. Well, that's kind of been the theme of this 8-5 is like, ugh. Because even the wins, you're like, I don't know how to put this without sounding like somebody who's spoiled rotten. But even the wins are like the typical Avs like standouts leading the way, which I think is obviously how it's supposed to go for your teams. But like, I'm ready for these acquisitions. I want one of these acquisitions to feel like the best player on the team for at least a week. And I haven't even come close to feeling like that. And the excitement when a new guy gets the puck, I don't feel that really for anybody right now. And that's kind of unfortunate. But let's talk about somebody that you might bring in that you could potentially feel excited about for 2 days until you're disappointed by their actual performance. The Avs have been rumored to be in the running for Patrick Kane, who is still a free agent. Does he solve anything for the Avalanche? I did a poll, and of the fans, 51% of fans said no, don't bring him here. 49% of fans said do.
Wow.
Ezra, what do you think of that? And I think we've talked about Kane a little bit, but tell me what your thoughts are on him. With the Avs.
I mean, that poll doesn't surprise me that much. I would have expected more no's. I think he just doesn't solve the problems. We already have Jonathan Drouin. We don't need another one. I don't know. He's obviously has a great legacy as an NHL player and not such a great legacy as a guy. But I don't want him here. I don't think anybody should. I don't know. He has a lot of potential to bring some offense to a team that needs offense. And weirdly, my complaint about this team right now actually is that they are not playing with a lot of offensive creativity. They're possessing the puck and just not doing anything with it, which, he might be able to help with that, but he's going to be a liability on the other end. We saw last season that his hip injury really slowed him down. We don't know what his recovery is like. He's the kind of person who you bet on to make a recovery from an injury like that. I think he's going to work at getting back on the ice, but he's also on the older side, and I don't know. I'm comfortable with the Avs not pursuing that potential headache. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
I'm with you, and I think it speaks volumes to the fact that he's not been picked up elsewhere.
Yeah.
To me, there are teams much more desperate than the Avalanche up front. As desperate as the situation might feel right now for the Avalanche, there's a few out there in the NHL who could probably use the services of Patrick Kane. Obviously, he has to sign with them, but given his current status, I imagine he's just waiting for a reasonable offer from pretty much anybody that fits the mold. But I'm with you. Let's see. We got Sage Walker. He says Kane could bring veteran leadership and a decent center could patch for now if he goes cheap. If he goes cheap,
Never
sure.
played center in his life.
Yeah. If he goes cheap, sure. But I don't think he goes cheap. He's Patrick Kane. And I'm with you, Ezra. Like, not to get too far off topic here, but I just don't know how well he works in the room based on some of the clouds hanging over his head and that era of the Blackhawks. Like, who wants to inherit that right now? I, for one, don't. Evan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that was mostly going to be my main talking point was the fact that the Avs have been very belligerent on the fact that they want to have a good locker room culture, locker room environment, and Kane would not really fit that category. Sure, he can do good things on the ice. I would say he's a quote unquote better version of Jonathan Drouin. When it comes to the capability of scoring, still probably about the same lack of defending and whatnot. But I mean the culture combination along with his hip surgery recovery as well, and of course the cost side of it as well. You have to think about are all just kind of big blockers to get him to sign in Colorado in the first place. And I would rather just want the Avs to recall Kovalenko early, even though I know that's not possible.
Yeah.
So one can dream, right? But no, I think while I would be happy to have him on the ice when it comes to scoring capabilities, and then if you can get somebody who like backtrack, who's able to play defense on the back end on his line, then maybe. But like everyone's just said right now, too expensive, and that's just one of many reasons why I think he won't be in Colorado.
Yeah, and I think if the Avs had like an extra 3 or 4, it might not be a big deal, but they don't right now. They got 2 extra from Frankie, but I still don't think that moves the needle enough. Ezra, what were you about to say?
Yeah, I just think like the Avs problem has been that the new guys haven't gelled yet. So I don't know how adding another new piece to the mix
Yeah,
solves that problem.
Good point.
You know what? Why don't you come on in and stir the pot a little bit more and make this a
Yeah.
2-month longer endeavor till we figure this out. And I think I don't want to like make people who want Patrick Kane to be an Avalanche feel like they're silly for desiring that. He was a great player, but I just think that it just doesn't make sense. And I think you're kind of playing video game GM when you think of that. And obviously Elliot Friedman has connected him and kind of substantiated some of these claims, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got that information from an agent and not a GM. And I wouldn't be surprised if an agent was saying, "Oh yeah, the Avs are in on Patrick. Let the world know." That could very well not be true at all, and that could just be an agent jostling for position for his client and saying, "See, look, we got the Stanley Cup favorites looking at our guy. Why wouldn't you want him?" So I think it has more of that tune than it does like actual legitimate ties. If in 2 hours the Avs sign Patrick Kane and I'm wrong, then this segment will be absolutely hilarious. It'll just be us telling people that it's not happening and it shouldn't happen, and then it will. But that's the beauty of hockey and sports, I guess. But it's just not there for me. It really isn't. My wife is a big Kane fan from his Blackhawks days, and she's like, "Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be crazy?" And I'm like, "No, it'd be neither. It wouldn't be fun, and it might be crazy, but not in a good way." So I digress. Let's move on and get back a little bit to tonight's game against the Kraken. As we mentioned, it's the 14th featuring of the Avs and Kraken in basically a year. So we're sick of it, but let's do it one last time. Ezra, does this feel like a must win for the Avalanche, given how the last couple of games have gone? Obviously not in the scope of like winning it all, but just kind of in terms of the attitude in the room.
It's a must bring it, I would say.
Yeah,
If
that's
they come out and they don't play like this game matters, then there's a huge problem because you don't see Bednar rip into a team like that ever. So if they don't respond well, that's horrible. That's scary stuff.
yeah,
I expect them to come out flying, and if things go wrong for them again early on, that's going to be a big test of their will because that's what we saw in St. Louis. They came out flying, they dominated the game, they got down a little bit, they imploded.
yeah.
If that happens again, that's horrible. That's a really bad sign. So I think this is a game where they need to play a full 60 minutes. If they lose somehow, whatever. But if they do play a full 60 minutes, Seattle's not good enough to beat them.
Exactly. Yeah, it's such a great way to you just absolutely nailed that. Like the Avs are a better team. If they play the way they're supposed to for 60 minutes, they should win. And if they respond the way they should respond to a coach like Jared Bednar, pretty literally calling them out, they should win. So I'm with you there. I love the way you put it too. A must show up. Evan, is that how you see it too?
I think must show up is a great way to put it. And I think that it kind of goes back to yesterday's practice, which was optional, which I think kind of surprised some people. Maybe thinking it was like a test, seeing who really shows up and or doesn't.
Yeah.
But it was just the fact that like so many people are dinged up and injured and whatnot. And so Bednar even said himself is like, it's miserable today. Like we didn't even have a full squad to like really practice and really get these guys to work. And of course, thinking about the game today. So now you have to tell yourself and tell your team, bring it today. Right. And I think that's kind of key and important. And why I agree with Ezra, I think it's a must show up rather than a must win. I would say if they lose tonight, then Wednesday against the Ducks is definitely a must win. That's not me saying the Ducks are bad because they've actually been doing really well to start the season.
Right.
But the Ducks do not have the same capability that the Avs have. But anyway, I digress. So like tonight is probably a must show up kind of night. Play a full 60 minutes. Put in the effort,
Mm-hmm.
Try and match Seattle's energy because they're going to have the home ice advantage. Of course, they're going to have the fans behind them. They know what has happened in the last 14 games between these two teams. And they obviously have the one leg up, at least in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And no matter if we say 3 Stanley Cups to none, it's not going to get in their head. So
You're only as good as your last.
Exactly. So I agree with the must show up mentality. If they come out like they did in the first 10 minutes against St. Louis and they play that for the next 50 minutes, awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that Ducks game because that's the first game that we'll be sending a MHHL follower to. The ticket winner will be that Ducks game. And hopefully you're right. Hopefully they will have already satiated the get right game and they welcome the Ducks in a way that's going to be a little bit more on the dominating side because you're right. Again, we'll get back to it. In 60 minutes, if the Avs play the way they're supposed to, they're better than both the Kraken and the Ducks. So not to get too far ahead, but I like that you bring up kind of some of the games to come because it feels to me like we talked about this episode 1 of the new season that the Avs started with kind of like a West Coast road trip, right? And since then, we've just kind of gone back to the West Coast and made kind of stops here and there along the way otherwise. But it does feel like the Avs are playing a lot of later games and in an atypical fashion. Do you think that the schedule going forward and in that it's a little bit more conventional will benefit the Avs in that regard? Ezra, I'll send this one to you.
I think that the imbalanced schedule where they weren't playing like every other night very often definitely made it harder for them to get into a rhythm. I don't know about the late starts. I don't think that necessarily changes anything for them. I'm not really, I can't speak to anybody's process in the locker room, but generally I'd think like a 7 versus an 8 isn't going to make that much of a difference. A bunch of afternoon games would be weird. That would
Yeah.
that would go. Yeah, that's a different thing. But I do think getting back to a more consistent schedule that they have coming up right now. Right now they have a stretch of I think I can't remember the details, but I think it's mostly every other night for a while, which I
Yeah.
think will really help them build some chemistry and some consistency. So yeah, I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. How quickly do you think that this can turn around based on that, though? Like, based on what you're saying, we could go a week if it's a game every other day. Say the Avs play 4 in a week. The Avs could be 12-5 by the end of the next 4 games, and outlook is
Yeah.
pretty different, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty realistic. I mean, again, the play is mostly good, and then it gets really bad when things start going wrong. So I think it just comes down to having some good starts. If they could score first for once in their lives, that would be great. I think that would change everything. And getting to play every other night means getting to wash away these bad games a little bit quicker, if
Right.
there are any more bad games. Hopefully not. So again, this may be a too statistical look at it, but like the way that their PDO is crazy, the way that the on ice shooting percentages are for other teams versus them is just, it has to normalize. It has to. It's it just doesn't work. The hockey doesn't work this way.
Yeah.
Everything's going wrong. Everything's going wrong, and it's like literally one turnover, or like the turnovers at ends of shifts makes sense. That those kinds of things are going to be a problem if you have long shifts, but like, it can't stay this crazy, and having games every other night means there's more opportunity for things to get fixed faster. So
I like it.
yeah.
And you know what Bednar mentioned too in that awful interview, he said that practice is where you put the work in. But I think in the scope of like what you're talking about, game in and game out is really where you put the work in, especially in terms of figuring out who this team is. We still don't really know what the identity of this Avalanche team is. We don't know if it's going to be that they're a great defensive team with decent goaltending and scoring. We don't know if they're going to be just a gritty squad that's going to be in every game and have the talent to win in the dying moments of the game. We don't really know who this team is yet. So I'm on, I guess, pins and needles, waiting for them to sink into something. Even I just hope it's not this disastrous performances and getting behind, because honestly, that's the only thing that I feel like they've really sunk into, is the way that they've lost is they get behind and they kind of just pack it in one way or another. And they don't get the bounces they want. And with each bounce they don't get, that packing it in feels more and more apparent. And I think that's just human nature. I'm not dissing on the Avalanche. When you aren't doing something well, you don't want to continue to do it. That's not normal. Like, that's crazy. If you suck at something and you keep wanting to do it, you're nuts. So I think the Avalanche are just dealing with human problems right now, and I think we'll see them turn it around. Evan, what do you think? Do you think the Avs have the potential to quickly turn this around?
Oh, absolutely. Of course they do. I mean, we saw it last season. Even I think they were. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. They won the one game in Edmonton in overtime, and that broke up a streak of like 10 losses or something like that, like something ridiculous. But then they went on like a 6-game winning streak after that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely possible for sure. Now, do they have the capability to kind of dig deep and find a way to do that? I think that is up for debate, at least right now. With the personnel that they have, obviously missing Cogliano and Lehkonen, as we've already gone over. Even questions on defense. I realized we didn't touch on this with Sam Malinsky coming up. And he allegedly sounds like he's making his NHL debut tonight. By the sounds of it, anyways, interview wise.
So who's hurt?
Well, I was about to mention both Kale and Bo were on the ice for morning skate. I saw pictures of them. So I don't think it'd be either of them. They weren't like non-contact jerseys. I wonder if it's like a Jack Johnson, maybe. Yeah, maybe pulling Jack out for Sam Malinsky. Who knows? Well, we'll see what happens. But maybe he can, inject something new into this team. I'm hoping that Riley Tufte maybe finds a way to get on the score sheet. And you're looking at guys like Ryan Johansson, who finally scored his first 5-on-5 goal. Maybe leading to something there, right? I'm also really, really looking at that third line in particular, because that third line has pretty much stayed the same throughout the entire season. And I think Miles Wood has arguably been the best player to start the year for the Avs, even if the point totals doesn't show it. So I'd be looking to him as well. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going on a rant. I just think going up and down the lineup right now.
No,
But yeah.
I'd
No,
say
I-
Logan Connor, but that's still
Yeah.
the third line. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys are both right, I'd say, because it's really been just the third line has been excellent and clearly the best line for the Avalanche so far. The top line is clearly the most skilled line, obviously, but on a consistency basis, that kind of hasn't really been there for them. And I've been trying to avoid this because I don't want to sound stupid live in front of the world, but like I'm disappointed in Nathan McKinnon so far this season, and it's twofold. I'm disappointed because I feel like this was his time to truly cement himself as not just the leader by example, but the leader with his words. And I know everyone always says McKinnon's just not that guy. Why? Why is McKinnon not that guy? He's the most competitive person I think I've ever witnessed in history of time. He's smart. He knows hockey better than most people, and he's damn good. Like I think we need to stop letting him off the hook and looking other places to Rantanen and to Kill McCarr for leadership. It starts with Nathan McKinnon. He's truly the heartbeat of this team. And even when Landeskog was a part of the squad, that's what people would say. And it can't be that he's kind of floating. It really does feel like, and this was mentioned on the broadcast, on the TNT or ESPN broadcast, that sometimes he stick handles himself to death when he's struggling. And that is so true. It looks like he tries to like, oh yeah, we'll watch this. And like, I'm still waiting for him to mature into that, at least this season, getting back to that maturity that it felt like he had the year they won the cup, where it was like, nah, big picture, move on. I feel like now he's like got his ego rolling again. And that needs to take a back seat. And we need to see more from McKinnon in terms of leading by example, but also holding people accountable. You know, we hear stories of he doesn't like dudes eating this and eating that. Where is that, and how is that not translating right now? Ezra, what are your thoughts on that? Am I just being angry guy screaming at the sky?
I don't think so. I think I see what you're saying for sure. The stick handling himself into a corner is really common. And just, he had the opportunity, especially with what's going on in Edmonton this year, he had the opportunity to come out and be like, no, actually, I am the best player in the world. So
Yeah.
fuck you all. But, can't swear.
You can, you're good.
Remove that. But yeah, I mean, I think he always starts slow is the thing. Like every year he started slow. So I can't think of a year where I wasn't like, where is this dude in October and maybe a little bit in November. So I'm feeling cautiously optimistic about him because this start has been like, okay, I went to do my weekly grades last week and I was like, man, McKinnon is rough. And then I was like, oh, he led the team in points. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, all right. So yeah, he wasn't that bad. I mean, granted, there were 2 shutouts, but still, no, there was only 1 shutout last week. But yeah, I agree with you that he had an opportunity to come out and make a statement, and he hasn't done it. But I feel cautiously optimistic that it still can come. As far as him as a leader, I mean, he is a guy who reacts emotionally to what's happening in the game, and that's great. It is like you said, he's the heartbeat of the team, but the heartbeat of the team is not the brain of the team, And I'm not saying he's not smart. I just mean he is a person who reacts emotionally, and Landeskog is a person who does not, and that is part of why he is such a great leader, because he can bring the emotion when he needs it, but he's reacting intellectually. And again, that's not me calling McKinnon stupid. He's not a stupid guy. He knows his game. He knows what he's doing. He's a smart person. His reactions are instinctively emotional. And I mean, look, you look at me, you probably don't think I played, but I did. And I was the same way. I was a captain a couple of times. And every time, anytime anything went wrong, my coach would pull me aside and be like, you're the captain. You have to have some composure. And I'm like, right. So, he is, I'm not comparing myself to Nathan McKinnon. That's insane. But I understand the reactions. And I know from my experience that it's hard not to react the way you react to things. And it's not necessarily captain behavior.
I agree. Well, and my rebuttal to that, though, is didn't Landeskog develop that, though? Because Landeskog had the same exact reputation for the first 4 to 5 years of his captaincy was, dude, stop doing those emotional penalties and stay out of the box. You're killing us.
Yeah,
And
but he
then
was 20.
right, agreed. So maybe it's just like
25, you know?
we're asking Nathan to grow, and he's grown.
27? Nate's
Yeah,
old now.
he's grown. So old dog can't teach old dog new tricks, I guess is the name of the game here. Because I'm with you, like you mentioned, he's not dumb. He's not an unintelligent player. In fact, he's probably one of the more intelligent players in all of the league. So, and I want him. I guess what I want to see more from McKinnon is like the scoring, and then looking at everybody else and saying, see, like this is the standard, because that's what we were told about this team and this culture, is that they set the standard and they hold each other to it. I'm not getting that sense right now, that they're setting a standard and holding each other to it. Maybe setting it, but not quite holding each other to it right now. And that's just kind of what I'm hoping for more of from Nathan McKinnon, and really all of the bigger names on the squad. Evan, what are your thoughts on that? I know we're kind of sneaking into our bold predictions segment here, but I think we're talking about something kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think, and I know we've gone over this before, is that McKinnon and other stars in particular will have slower starts to the season than maybe some of us expect. I know that was a big thing that Jackie had harped on before. But then again, I know Rantanen had 4 points in that first game against LA. And I think that all kind of took at least the four of us maybe by surprise of like, oh, maybe we can start fast this season, you know? And of course it led to the 6-game win streak and all of that. But I think kind of every point has been hit when it comes to leading with your head and not with your heart. If you can find a way to combine the two and make it a heartfelt but smart, you know, kind of rebuttal or decision or whatever is going on in the game, then great, awesome. That will really bode your team well. And you guys are completely right too about Landeskog taking a lot of time to mature and grow to be the captain that he is now to this day. Now I do wonder if Landeskog has been in touch with much of the team, because we know he's still in Toronto rehabbing, doing all that. So he's been away from the team, which makes perfect sense, of course. But you have to wonder if maybe he's, you know, at least sending some text messages here and there to McKinnon, trying to help out in a leadership-ish way, even without being around, even to Rantanen maybe. Who knows, right? And he's, you know, I would love for Landeskog to kind of be a part of the team like he was towards the end of last year. Even, you know, of course, that was when we were still hoping he was maybe making a comeback, but you know, even then, just like having another sensible voice in the room, you know.
Yeah.
And I know he is dearly missed, and that McKinnon probably does miss him a lot on the ice as a line partner, but then also as a calm voice in the locker room. So I wonder. I don't think that's, you know, really playing an effect, but you know, it's just a matter of how can he rebound on the ice, because that's where McKinnon does his talking, quite frankly. It is on the ice with his play, and then also maybe his willingness to take a what's the penalty called? An instigator penalty.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong here. Like, I'm this close to naming my child Mac or McKinnon. So like, don't get me twisted here. Like, I love the dude, and it has everything to do with the fact that I've seen it from him before, and that I know, like, I think I know who he is as a player. I constantly akin him to a Kobe Bryant, and it just the mentality, Michael Jordan. The guy who's going to show up every single day. We talk about tonight being a must show up game. McKinnon's rumored to not just show up every game, but every day. And in every decision he makes, it surrounds the success of his team. And I think, like I mentioned, that Landeskog in my article that touched a little bit on the DMAC comments of handing the seed down, was that Landeskog is the best mascot in the world right now. Because I think what he does is he embodies what the Avalanche strive to be in terms of their attitude. And it's tough right now. It's been so long since he's been gone. I think that communication between him and the players doesn't quite hold the weight that it used to, especially even maybe last year when there was hope to him coming back. I think as we get closer to the playoffs, that might be more true, but we'll see. Let's get into our bold predictions here, though. We had a good week despite the Avalanche having a not so good one. We had Jackie, who predicted that Tufty would get the call up and that he would play. And that happened like the next day. It might have even happened like hours after she made that prediction. Louis, you guessed that Johansson would score 5-on-5. You know what? I'm going to give you one for that because you did a two-part bold predictions, and your second part was definitely wrong. Druin get his first goal. That did not happen. And he did get an assist. You're right. He did get an assist.
Oh,
if you would have just said point.
Garbage goal.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Garbage
I
time,
didn't even
baby.
realize that. Wow.
Yeah.
And Ezra, you had the third line scoring 4 points in the week. It turns out they scored 4 points that evening.
Yeah.
Which is like, can I give you a million dings? Like, holy moly. They were excellent. I think, was it Wood who had 2 goals or was it Ross Colton? Wood who had 2 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Colton had a goal and an assist. And no, I don't know.
I think Wood had a goal. Colton had a goal.
Yeah, that's right. And Logan had an assist.
O'Connor assisted on
Well,
both.
Colton also had an assist on that Wood goal, too.
Yeah, they scored a bunch of points.
They did awesome, which is great.
Yeah, they did awesome.
So long ago and so many depressions since.
Seriously. And then my bold prediction was that the Avalanche would go undefeated last week. And
man.
Did not happen. When I made that prediction, Jackie said, well, I don't like those games when the Avs play the team they just played, and she was talking about the Blues and the Kraken for tonight. So Jackie was right. She should have just boldly predicted that my bold prediction was going to be totally wrong.
We can do that?
Yeah, I know, right?
That's my bold prediction every week.
My bold prediction is that we're wrong for the next 3 weeks. But with that being said, let's play our little tune here.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right, Evan, let's start with you, my friend. What is your bold prediction this week?
Okay, I'm going to make mine a little bit differently because I know I'm going to be gone for the next 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to do mine for the next, I guess, what is it, the 27th when I'm No,
okay.
Whatever the one after that. I'm looking at the calendar right now on the new Avalanche app, which, by the way, is awesome and so much better than the NHL app. I promise I'm not getting paid by the team to say this, but you should download it because it's actually pretty good and I like it. So I'm looking at just the schedule pretty much. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games between now and the next time we'll be back on the podcast.
Wow.
So yeah, a long time. I know I'm leaving at a really great time, guys. I apologize. But anyway, besides that, I'm going to throw in like a prediction, like how these 11 games are going to go.
Okay.
You have a wide variety of matchups. You have is that 3? Yeah, 3 Central Division teams. All of them, there's one Eastern team, that's Tampa. That should actually probably be a pretty decent game on home ice. And pretty much the entire Central Division is falling apart. Like everyone except Dallas, because Minnesota also got blown out. I think it was last night or a couple nights ago by Dallas. And the Avs play Dallas, of course, later this week, actually, in Dallas. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how this all unfolds. But I'm going to go with a pretty even 6-5 record over the next 11 games.
Go 6-5 over the next 11 games, and we will see you next year.
I was going to say, so here's opponent-wise, I guess. So they play Seattle tonight, of course. They play the Ducks twice in this 11-game span. You have Dallas, Vancouver, Nashville. Their first no, that's not the right word. Their first back-to-back game day. So they played Minnesota and then Calgary the next night. Tampa, like I already said, Arizona, and then LA. So a good probably set of teams, I would say, to play. Some pretty good matchups in there, and it'll be interesting to see how the Avs come out of them. I would hope it's better than 6-5.
I was going to say, so what happens if they win 6 in a row to start those 11 games? Are you just hoping they lose the next 5?
I would love to be wrong then if that's the case. Trust me.
We'll give you that buzzer with a smile and a wave. But, I talked, kind of hinted. I'm sure people picked up on it because I'm not that nuanced, but I think the Avalanche will have a quick turnaround from the way this is start. I feel like the group, specifically McKinnon, who I've spent time kind of calling out, has no choice but to respond to inside of his character, which is to be as good as he can be in response to being called out by his coach. And I think the opposite reaction is that he kind of crumbles and you see a rift happen inside the locker room. That's just not this team. They've already won a cup together. That's not happening. So I think we see a little bit better than your 6-5 prediction, but I like your modest take there. You're just like, yeah, we'll give them one win over the 5.
6-5, can I get a ding?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. Absolutely. Deal. Over 6 wins in the next 11. That's how we should put it.
Okay. That's a better way to put it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ezra, let's hear your bold prediction.
Okay. Well, so the next week of games is Seattle, Anaheim, Dallas, and I think they I think they win tonight, and I think it's Anaheim that beats them, not Dallas, and they go 2-1. That's my prediction. It's
so
not
they
that
win tonight, lose to Anaheim,
beat Dallas,
and beat
That's
Dallas.
not that bold. Let me come up with something more fun. I think Sam Malinsky scores points this week.
Ooh, that is a good one. I was going to say being
plural
Dallas.
Plural points or points?
Points.
Go.
More than 2.
More than 2.
2 or more.
Oh, 2 or more. Okay, I was like more than 2. Wow.
And you like Malinsky too, because you like their acquisition of him from the Sharks back, day one, kind of. You were intrigued.
Acquired from the Sharks. That was
Merkley.
Oh,
I liked the experiment of Merkley. It didn't.
Gotcha.
Didn't end well.
He's a very similar style player, which is a style of player I like. So I do like Malinsky. I think his preseason was really disappointing after a really strong camp, but down in the AHL, he's been solid. Not great. So I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. I'm being pure optimist with this one. This is very much my bold hope.
So I'll give you 2 then. I'll still do the win tonight, lose to Anaheim, and beat Dallas, because I think that's more bold than you realize. I think if you put that into a betting machine, you'd have some plus odds. So that's a bold prediction.
That's true.
And Malinsky scores 2 or more. I'll give you that one as well. So if you get them both right, I mean, we're gonna give you like 4 dings again this week, like we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
God,
I was going to say beating Dallas on the road. That's probably pretty bold, at least I would say right now. So
yeah. Oh man, I'm just laughing right now because I shared a video of the Frankie chant, and I said this hits a little different today, and someone very, very keenly shared the GIF of the WWE owner doing the cry and no, don't talk about it.
Oh yeah.
So, I saw that. That was great.
So, that's funny. Well, that's kind of, I guess, how we'll end the show. Then we'll do it.
Wait. Where's yours?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. You guys are gonna make me be wrong again.
I also want to touch on one more thing before we're done.
Okay, so here's my bold prediction. My bold prediction is that tonight the person that I just decided to roast for no reason will have a 4-point night. Nathan McKinnon. We'll have a 4-point night tonight.
I would absolutely love that. As I think most everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to come out hungry.
Yeah, I feel like. Well, I really just called him out so that when he goes off tonight, I can give myself credit and be like, yeah, it's because he watched the podcast in the locker room right before. All right, Evan, go ahead and hit us with what you were going to talk about, though.
Yeah, I was just going to give a quick shout out to Pierre Lacroix and Eric Lacroix in particular, who are out in Toronto for his Hall of Fame induction. Along with is it Pierre Turgot, right? Or Turgot?
Pierre Turgeon.
Yeah, it's a weird name.
The Frenchie doesn't know it, but anyway, yeah. Shout out to them. It looks like they've had a great weekend out there. Credit to DNVR and Megan Angeli, who've been out there kind of covering the entire scene there. And I look forward to that their induction into the Hall of Fame, and once I eventually visit the Hall of Fame one day, seeing the plaques for both of them.
Yeah.
So that is I think probably the best news that we've had all week that is Avs related when it comes to everything that's happened. So yeah, just shout out to those two for
I love
enshrined in history forever.
Yeah, I love that. And I saw Eric Lacroix was actually on the Altitude broadcast a couple of days ago in the morning as well. And he mentioned that his dad and Turgeon were pretty close, and that he had breakfast a lot of the times with his dad and Turgeon. And I think that that's really cool. And of course, Pierre's going in as a creator. And it goes to show like the relationships that he was able to garner with his players, and on top of that, how well he did at his job. I think the announcement that Ball Arena made the other day with the cup that says something's going to be arriving at Ball Arena soon. I think that's going to be a Pierre Lacroix statue. So you heard it here first.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think
That's
there's
cool.
gonna be a statue of Pierre out front of Ball Arena. If I'm wrong, it's gonna be some other Av legend, I imagine, and so get ready for that. I can't imagine it being anyone else, obviously, with the current news.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, and I'm with you. That's kind of like the dude pretty much curated the entire fandom that exists today based on the team that he put on the ice. So we kind of owe him a debt of gratitude. We do what we do basically because of what he did and how early he did it so well. Another note on that was when he did get the GM duties from the previous general manager of the Geeks. He said, "Okay, but I need to win fast," and he put his money where his mouth was, and well, what do you know? He won the cup the first year he was the GM. So I guess he knew exactly what he was doing. Cheers to the Lacroix family and everybody out there and all of the Avs legend. And cheers to Pavel Francouz for his wonderful career as an Avalanche. We're not sure if he'll come back as an Avalanche, betting he won't. But hats off to him and his crew for all of his contributions to the Avalanche. And we'll sign off for over here at Mile High Hockey. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your fellow Avalanche fans. Head on over to Spotify. We have a catalog, working on getting our catalog on Apple and everything else as well. But be sure to download those episodes and listen to them. It's kind of funny when you speed it up. I sound like a chipmunk. Do that. It makes the episode take a half hour instead of an hour. But yeah, from Adrian here at Mile High Hockey to you all Avs fans, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a good evening. Go Avalanche.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.